is that Canada has a national policy of a mosaic. In the United States, we have a melting pot. A mosaic is, it seems to me, the greatest ideal. It says that what makes a great society is the diversity of each of us, our uniqueness, our shape, our color. And yet we can come together in ways that will make a magnificent portrait. And that's Canada's national policy. And so it's the perfectly appropriate place for us to be gathered, I think. For me, this is the most historic day of the last 40 years of ABCD. And I have done something that I rarely have ever done. Usually, if I'm asked to make a presentation, I have an envelope and a few notes on the back. But this is too important for that. So, if you'll pardon me, I have actually written words so that I can be sure that I say what I mean. It's clear to me that what we are here is representatives of a worldwide movement. And movements are not organizations, they're not institutions, they're not systems. They have no chief executive officer. They have no president. They have no central office. And in a way, they have no plan. Instead, they happen when thousands and thousands of people discover together that they have some new possibilities. They have what I think is a calling. They are called. And together they call upon themselves to come together. We have been called today to gather here to pursue a common calling. It would be a mistake to label our calling asset-based community development or community development or community building, because those are just names, they're words for groups of local people who have the courage to create their own way, to live in a culture made by their own vision, handmade and homemade. Ours is a movement with a visionary culture. Wherever we look, it's a culture that starts the same way around the world. First, we see what we have individually and as neighbors and in this place. Second, we know that the power of what we have grows from creating new connections and relationships among what we have. And third, we know that these connections happen when we individually or collectively act to make the connections, because they don't happen on their own. We also know that often these three steps to going our way are blocked by great corporate, governmental, professional, and academic institutions. And these institutions often say, you are inadequate, incompetent, problematic, or broken. We will fix you. It is our calling to ignore those voices, because they are the voices that create dependence and powerlessness. For we are a people called to find our way and not to follow their way. For we strive to live in a democracy. A democracy is a politics that gives us the freedom to create our own vision and the power to make that vision come true. We strive to be citizens, people with the vision and the power to create our own way, our culture of capacity, our connections, our care. Unfortunately, today many leaders and even neighbors think that the idea of a strong local community is sort of nice, a good thing if you have a little spare time, but not really important, vital, or necessary. However, we know something else. We know that strong communities are vital and productive, and above all, that they are necessary. They are necessary because of the inherent limits of all the great institutions. No matter how hard they try, our very best institutions cannot do many things that only we in our local communities can do. And what we only can do is what is necessary to be done for a decent, productive, and democratic society. So let me remind you what only we can do as local neighbors and as citizens. First, we are the producers of a people's health. Health is determined by our personal behavior, by our social relations, by our physical environment, and by our economic status. And lastly, and scientifically least important, our access to medical care. So if we are interested in a society that is healthful, it will not get there by saying, we have a medical institution, a great system. It will make us healthful. I think there are no epidemiologists who think that medical systems provide more than 10% of the cause of our well-being in terms of health. So when we hear these great debates about the systems and where they are going, the fact is that at best they can't go where only we can go in our neighborhoods. Second, we are the stewards of our security and safety. We know from some very significant research, incidentally, that took place in Chicago neighborhoods, that there are two basic determinants of local security. The first is how many residents know each other by name. And the second is how much activity are those residents engaged in associative public activity. So at the local level, not police finally will make us safe, but our acting together is the critical determinant of whether we will be safe. Our third authority and responsibility has to do with the environment, because in our neighborhoods we are the demand structure, aren't we, for so much of the energy. So when we say we care about the environment, we care about global warming, then how we transport ourselves, how we use energy in our homes, how we use materials in our lives, all locally, are critical determinants as to whether this earth will live or die.